Okay, now that we have the vice chair, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with introductions in the room. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Assembly Rules Committee, February 12, 2026 on the calendar from 1 to 3. It is now 1:05. Mr. Volant.
Daniel Volant.
Anna Brawley.
Christopher Constant on the phone. Mr. McCormick.
Here.
Thank you. And Ms. Silvers.
Here.
Thank you. I'd heard from Mr. Martinez, Mr. Rivera, and Mr. Presverdia that they could not attend and would like to be excused. So that's fine. And we'll go ahead and get started. Just basically, this committee meeting may go pretty quickly. We do have some substantive items, but not so many people here. And some pretty important topics, though. I don't have a ton to report as the chair today. We are in an active election. Things are moving pretty quickly towards April 7th. May 17th ballots are to be mailed. The final ballot selection was set early this week or late last week, and that was communicated to the public by press release from the elections team. But Jamie will give us a more fulsome update on the election down in the new business section. So I think for the most part, that's all I have. We also have a representative of the mayor. Please come forward, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. And are we Mr. Chair or first names in this committee meeting?
First chair. No, first names are fine.
Great.
I
All
slip
right.
back and forth, but it's less fun.
Great, thank you. I'm Barb Jones. I'm the mayor's deputy chief of staff, and I'm happy to be reporting on behalf of the mayor. And I usually report about the 3 things, or 7, because that's my favorite number, but we'll just stick with 3 today. As most of you know, the mayor is in Juneau, and she is meeting with legislators to talk about the 2026 legislative program. She's talking about the Don Young Port of Alaska and, of course, the APD Real Crime Center. And I think you've heard her position that making Anchorage and our infrastructure strong and helping security in Anchorage will help Alaska keep the state strong. So I think those are the themes in Juneau this week. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the bond and levy fact sheets. And those are going through a final proofing process right now. And they are going to be posted both on the mayor's website and the OMB bond fact sheet website. So you should see those in the next day or so. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the administration is working through the congressionally directed spending. They've gotten requests from the departments, and we're working through those for Senator Murkowski and I believe Representative Begich. And Senator Murkowski's are due in her portal on February 27th. And that is all that I have to report. Thank you for letting me speak to you. And if you want to let me or I can get back to the mayor or the mayor's staff if you have any questions.
Anna.
Yeah, on the CDS piece, I know, I know there's a federal bill related to housing, which is separate from those requests, which is not, this is really a legislative committee question.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, for the CDS requests, what those are going to be. I assume they're in our CIP list, but just to make sure, because I know there's a long list of things that we need, and there's probably a much shorter things that we're gonna submit for, so that'd be helpful. And I'll just add, it'd be helpful to know by next week, because a bunch of us are going to Juneau for the AML conference. So that way we're just aware if there's anything in a district or related that we can just be able to speak to it.
As you probably know, the mayor's policy director, Nolan Clouda, is working through those and is your legislative liaison. And so I will be sure to let him know that question and ask him to get back to you.
I don't see any other questions. Okay, I would note that Mr. McCormick are you still here, Keith? Mr. McCormick has left the building, the meeting. So, okay, that's fine. Now we'll go through our department briefs from the clerk.
Thank you, Chair. So I think I haven't given an update on the code publishing situation since maybe October. We are now officially in a contract. And so General Code will be taking over our codification work. Muni Code is currently working on a final update. They anticipated that was going to be done earlier this week, so we expect that to be done very soon. And then General Code will take over putting our content into their platform. And then that will take about 8 weeks. And then my dream has come to fruition that our code will be updated monthly instead of semi-annually. Wow.
I would like to make a request that it goes live on April 29th.
It might be
20th.
before that.
Okay, fine.
We all know 1Q is coming up, so be expecting information regarding the budget amendment process. In the coming months from OMB.
Mr. McCormick, you're back?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, awesome, thanks.
Or Mr. Farina in the next few weeks. Short-term rentals. We are leveraging Ally's work with communications for the short-term rental registration rollout, and IT has been provided with the requirements for the registration form. So we'll be putting together a web form for people to give us their email addresses so we can provide updates along the way and then reminders once we get to launch point. And then the portal is the last thing I wanted to report on.
Before you go to the portal, what's the timeline for the launch of the registration? Short-term rentals?
What's the timeline for short-term rental registration?
Launch
It goes live May 1st,
May 1st.
which is when the effective date of the ordinance was.
Perfect.
And then they have 90 days to register. And then,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all. Thanks. Now the portal.
Portal. We have been getting many reports of missing documents or blocks of documents. So if you're doing research in the portal and you are seeing a missing document, let our staff know. We have been working with IT. The app was actually built in 2020 or 2021 by someone in IT who is no longer with the municipality. And staff after staff has tried to learn the system. The current staffer is trying to learn the system. I'm told that it will be time consuming to figure out all the issues with it. The app is not efficient and accurate. And so for efficiency reasons, we are looking into other options such as Laserfish, OnBase, and General Code, which is why I started out with talking about General Code, is because they have an option called EPUB or PubDocs where we could publish them in there, and then the search feature in the code would find your ordinances themselves. Anyway, more to come on that, but we are still in initial fact-finding space on that situation. And I think that's it. I'll give the regular election, the bigger update for elections in a little bit.
Okay. Any questions on the general? No. Okay, thanks. Next, then we'll have a report from council. All right, legislative services.
Thank you. This fall, we had a more concentrated effort to increase our education around budget and taxes and finance information. And so we had been working for a while with Jack Adamus to do an article on how property taxes work. So that got published right in the midst of when there was a lot of interest in that topic. And then I hope you caught last week, we worked with Glenn Cipriano, municipal treasurer, to put out an article on how all the other taxes work. So we're just trying to increase the resources for the community of how all of this works and where they can find more information. Since there was so much interest in the property appraisals, we updated the website with up-to-date information on that. the budget and taxes page. And then everyone who wrote to you about property appraisal, we had just a little background email that we sent to make sure they knew about the process to appeal and where to find more information. And I did share that with you at the time that I sent that out. Next, we have another Nerd Night coming up on February 26th at the Seed Lab. It's part of the Anchorage Design or Alaska Design, Anchorage Design Forum. Last year was the first time we partnered with the Design Forum, and it was very popular. I think it was our biggest Nerd Night yet with 100 people. And the topic this time is Our Winter City, 7-minute presentations by Anchorage locals, imagining our future if we embrace our latitudes. So I hope you come. We have a really great lineup, including a couple of our own homegrown talent, Mandy Honest from the clerk's office and member Aaron Baldwin Day. And then finally, the pre-approved ADU plan are finally getting moved forward. We have 2 plans that are getting permitted right now and should be public hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then a UAA class is working on their engineering class, is working on a capstone project to design a third with the goal to make it as cheap as possible to build. That's what, oh, and then one more thing, the municipality is updating their website, and Allie and Jamie have been working on that. So I thought maybe Allie and maybe Jamie wanted to add on, could just update the body about that.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Allie Hartman for the record. Jamie and I are participating in the website update as representatives of our branch on the project team. And we are making progress. So muni.org will move to a new website hosting platform this year. The target date for that turnover is going to be June 30th. And we do have in our back pocket some later dates if needed. So the midpoint date, or, the next best date is August 3rd. Worst case scenario, we're looking at September. But right now we're on track as a project team to be moving towards that turnover June 30th. Anything else to add, Jamie?
No, just that I think I reported in October that it's a SharePoint thing. Microsoft SharePoint is no longer being supported as a public facing software. So that was the whole impetus for the change.
Okay, and the ombudsman.
Good afternoon. Sunday, February 23rd or 22nd is the 49th anniversary of the Ombudsman's Office. So we will be hosting an open house on Monday, February 23rd from 3 to 6 p.m. 6:30? 3 to 6:30 p.m. in room 105 in the elections room. It is open to the public. We've sent invitations to all the department directors and different municipal employees. Everybody is welcome. Please stop by. We're going to have some educational information about our office, hopefully some fun trivia and prizes. And per request of the library, we will have cake. And we'll also have cookies. The library was very specific. They wanted a cake. We have been asked by the Alaska Black Caucus to help plan and co-host a Get Out the Vote fair on February 28th at APU Grant Hall for the Betty Davis African American Summit. So our office will have a presence there, and we are going to help plan it. And we're one of the sponsors of that non-partisan, non-political event. We are also going to have a presence at a multicultural night at West High on Saturday, April 1st. Thank you to Member Brawley for bringing that to our attention. We're happy to participate with that. And earlier today, we sent out our annual memo to all municipal department directors and to the school district, reminding them that posting of our poster is required in public areas of all municipal and school district facilities. Drew developed a new poster. So we're finally replacing the boring blue and black one we've been using for years with a much more attractive one that hopefully will get more attention from members of the public.
Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add shout out to the West High Filipino Club, which is one of the many groups who is organizing that. And I understand Adler Dopan, who is the counselor staff person for that club, is also organizing the event. So anyway, it's West High, so it's my side of town, but everybody's welcome. And I've heard from many people that it is a very well attended, very awesome event. So I highly encourage it, and it's free and open to the public. Thanks.
It's the borderland between your side of town and our side of town. Okay, thank you. Next up, then we'll move into the election update from the clerk, Jamie.
Thanks. Candidate filing closed. Sorry, I'm reading this as if it was given at the Quality Municipal Services Ethics and Elections, so I have to process timelines. It closed January 30th at 5 p.m. And we did receive a couple of complaints, which we did reviews on, and the slate of candidates has been finalized. I actually just got an email 2 minutes ago that our ballots are to the printer, so they've been through the ballot designer process. Ballots will be mailed out on March 17th. If voters are traveling during the election, they can apply to vote a temporary address. Applications are on our website, muni.org/elections, or directly to the application at muni.org/temp address. If anyone is traveling and unable to receive mail, they can email elections@anchorageak.gov or call the voter hotline at 907-243-8683 to discuss other options to vote. Voter registration deadline is Sunday, March 8th. The Division of Elections was struggling with not only phone calls to the Division of Elections Anchorage office, but also online voting registration and VREMS, but those have all been resolved as of yesterday, which thank goodness. I've had many conversations with attorneys this week. Glad everything's settling down. Knock on wood. We have been working on expanding education and outreach to reach voters who don't typically watch the news or read the newspaper, such as myself. We have attended 2 civic fairs in the past 2 months. We are working on bus ads that will be on certain bus routes starting May 16th. And then April 5th. Oh, it's March 16th through April 5th, and that will include a QR code that directs to our website. We have scheduled the radio ad spots across a wide range of radio stations, and I understand we also recorded the audio for that. We are looking into ads to air on podcasts and or Spotify. And then we have we've recently submitted the notice to the Daily News. In early December, we mailed out postcards to voters asking them to confirm that their information was correct, and if not, to update with the State of Alaska Division of Elections. We processed the returned postcards and provided the state with that undeliverable information. We sent out 213,609 postcards to voters who had the status condition code of RG, and 10,125 of those were returned. We worked with MOAIT to update the caller ID on phones at the election center to read municipal clerk's office rather than just the number. This was a request from the Election Commission. The hope is that when we get to the review and resolution phase of the process, if a voter needs to submit a cure, the team can call and it will show up as municipal clerk's office rather than just a random number that people don't want to answer. We are working with the League of Women Voters on their ballot review pamphlet, and that will be mailed to households in the municipality. We are reviewing that right now. The AOs containing the bond proposition language was approved. That's all been reviewed by the legal team and added to the ballots. A quick update on Language Link. We worked with Office of Equity and Inclusion on a solution for our vote centers to use Language Link. As I mentioned in the past, we used it, but it sort of fell to the election workers to use their cell phones. And IT has provided us with a few unused Muni cell phones to have at our vote centers to use as a Muni phone strictly for language link so that the workers don't have to use their phones. Voters can always sign up for ballot tracks to track the status of their ballots. AnchorageVotes.com is where people can sign up. They can receive text, email, voicemail notifications, or any combination. You get notification when it is in the mail to you. If you use the mail to send it back to the department, you will get notification that it is on its way back to them. When we receive it at the election center, once it has gone through the signature review process, and then, or if it needs a cure. We're also using text to cure again, so that voters can text Anchorage to a phone number to electronically cure their ballots rather than waiting on their letter to arrive in the mail. Next steps, we're sending the list of candidate, we've already done all that, sorry. We finalized phase 3 of our signature database. We first used it in the 2025 regular election and brought down the number of no sig matches. In 2025, we had 386 rejected no sig matches compared to 692 in 2022, 623 in 2023, and then 602 in the regular 2024 election. So we are working with the Election Commission to continue to figure out how to get the no sig matches as low as possible. And I think that is all. But I can answer questions if you have any.
Anna?
Yeah, I think I have one question, and I think this is mainly intending to be helpful for members that are going through this for the first time, who were in an election cycle last year. Can you give some broad guidance, or maybe this is for council, on what we, I guess, can say about what's on the ballot? Thinking, for example, about bonds, we'll use that as an example. You know, what is our what are we allowed to do as individual members, and then how would that relate to, say, sending out a newsletter or, you know, using other municipal resources and the distinction there?
I'll take a first stab at it, and then council can kick in if I make a mistake. I would say that from your official emails and newsletters, you can talk about what is in the ordinances. But if you were going to be promoting something or unpromoting something, that would need to come from your candidate email address. So using Ally would be in your district newsletters, would be specific to exactly what is in the ordinance. And then if you're going beyond what is in the ordinance, that would need to come from a campaign email.
Okay, thanks. And just to be clear too, another example, if I'm at a community council meeting, I'm describing what's on the ballot, either someone asks me my opinion, or I proactively want to say, you know, I think you should or shouldn't vote on this. You know, what are the boundaries there, I guess? Again, not in writing, but I'm just standing there but I'm in my assembly capacity.
I think you could define that in the meeting. You can say, as an assembly member, this, as a candidate, this is my opinion.
Attorneys?
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think there's a distinct difference between that example where you're just standing speaking to community council and standing speaking anywhere as an individual, as an assembly member even, and not just as a candidate. And that difference is you're not using municipal resources, you're just speaking. If you use municipal resources, you know, like Jamie mentioned, your email address or newsletter and so forth, there's two considerations. One is the ethics code, and that allows some limited use. So, I mean, there's also the state regulations on using municipal resources for campaign activity, and it allows some educational purpose. So as Jamie said, you can mention the content and what's there, what's in the ballot, but you don't want to start advocating a position on it, because then that might, I guess, entangle us with the state regulations and APOC rules and having the register as a campaign and so forth, and maybe some drug test fines, etc. So there's a difference there, if you see what I mean. If you use even limited use of resources, not entangle us with the state regulations. But for just speaking individually, you can voice your opinions however you want.
I have a quick follow-up to that, Dean. As it is a matter of the public record, is it okay then in your writing to say the assembly voted 9-3 in support of sending this to the voters and I voted yes? Jamie?
I mean, I would say you can see that on the minutes as well. So I would say that's a public record.
Yeah, so it's like, it wouldn't be kind of in a more gray area if you kind of, if it could look like advocacy of, I voted yes on this thing, but it's part of the public record and it's how it got there. So it seems like that's kind of the line or a line. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, and just to follow up too, so I'm thinking, because I appreciate, like, I know at least some number of us are also candidates, but I guess I'm thinking more regardless of whether, you know, a person is in the cycle. I guess what I'm hearing is basically as an assembly member, we have broad latitude to advocate, to say our opinion, right, in all of those things. And then the distinction is one, if we're using resources, which includes our email, includes staff time, includes newsletter, even though I don't pay for a newsletter, but my aide helps me write it when I pay him or the city pays him. So that seems to be the distinction is whether you're using any channels that require any resources other than you as a person. And then, but also still that we are free to speak, regardless of, again, whether someone's participating in the election or not. It's about that we have the latitude to, I guess, lobby really, or I guess it's not really lobbying in this case, but we have the ability to say more than a typical Muni employee would say.
I think you're allowed to have an opinion if it's just you.
And you want to be careful not to give some sort of, or imply that you're speaking on behalf of the assembly, you're just speaking and broadly's opinion.
Okay, I have a quick question for you, Jamie, on a kind of a unrelated but similar topic. We got a communication today, and I don't know who wants to speak to this, whether it's attorneys or the clerk, that we're asked to show up at 4:00 on Tuesday for some kind of a recording process relating to closed captioning. And so can we use this opportunity to kind of help members understand a little bit more fully what's happening?
Yeah, so we have a computerized closed captioner, and I honestly thought this was already in place, but apparently in April of 2024, there was ADA regulations put out regarding website content, AG, whatever, guidelines, something like that, WCAG. And we were given deadlines until 2026 to get that. And so by April 2026, the closed captions on our meetings are required to be accurate, and accurate has been legally sort of defined as 99%. And so by speaking some words, some paragraphs into the system, the contractor will be able to upload that into the software, and it will recognize who you are, so it can include that in the transcript, but also how you speak, so that it can more accurately portray what you said in our closed captioning.
Do we get to pick our text? Or is it like a
You
set
gotta
script
talk
for
to Farina
everybody?
about that.
He suggested he wants to use the land acknowledgement since it's like pretty straightforward, but I think you could do a soliloquy. Yeah. It doesn't matter, I think.
Lines from Matilda.
Yeah, we'll need each member speaking the land acknowledgement to make sure that the closed captions pick up on your articulation and pronunciation of the land acknowledgement. And also each member to say other members' names. Like, those are the things that are commonly errors in the transcript. So Matt, Farina, and I have been doing some working on the back end to look at what the transcript picks up and what are common errors.
I thought we hired someone to do the transcription, like an actual person.
We used to have a contractor, yes, and at the time we were doing the audio visual, she was also talking about retiring, but we went to a piece of equipment as opposed to contracting with someone. The equipment was, I want to say, the equipment was not cheap, but I think that a closed captioner is about $2,000 a meeting. So trying to find a balance there.
So is it AI? Well, yeah, and what are I would love to see the rules and parameters of whatever contract we're operating under relative to the use of our voices. Right, because these days that could be a tool to generate
I'll
by
have
third-party
Matt send
access.
out some information.
Metadata, God knows what. So, okay, some of us still have concerns. And I'm an implementer of AI, but my voice is mine. Okay, that covers that. Then we're gonna postpone the next item. Assembly member IMS email, Ms. Baldwin did raise some questions, and I don't think we should have that conversation without her here, because she would understand better the nuance of what she wanted to discuss. So we will now move into the Legislative Services Annual Report, and we'll move the IMS update into unfinished business.
All right, thank you. I guess first off, I want to say that although we did a report of our accomplishments, we're very collaborative, and we couldn't have done any of this work without our partnerships with the clerk's office, council, and we're working with the ombudsman's office on some projects as well. And of course, you all assembly members do so much work, and it's so great when you come to us with thought out, almost finished products, and we just have to put the final touches on it to make it look good, make you look good. But we do every year like to take stock of what we've accomplished and set our goals for the upcoming year. And so we wrote this report, and we do not need 20 minutes. It can be pretty quick. But just wanted to share with you what we're up to so you know what we're doing in our offices every day. The front page has some numerical data that we track. I think some highlights of that is that we got really great attendance this year of 1,800 people came to our events. We did some big ones with the Muni 50, so that helped. One thing that's down that is a good thing is press releases. We used to have to send out a lot of press releases, but now that we have the email newsletter going out twice a month, and some other ways to communicate, we don't have to have pants on fire press releases going out all the time. And you can see we increased the newsletters. Another thing that we've been doing that we would love to do more of is help you with your speaking engagements. If there's groups you want to be getting in front of, trade associations, community groups, we'd love to help you put together talking points and slides and even help book those. So get in touch with us if you'd like to do that. We'd like to do more of that next year. We do a number of Assembly 101 trainings throughout the year, and this year we had a really great year. We trained 167 people on how the assembly meetings work, mostly youth. We have some big groups at East High that we've been partnering with on that.
Real quick before you move on, that's interesting. Maybe we ought to coordinate with the teachers that are sending their students from government classes to see if they wanted to kind of dovetail on that and build on that, maybe go there or have them come early, do some of that in the chamber before the meeting. So it's, because I know there's like 3 or 4 teachers, so it's not a long list of contacts to make.
Yeah, you're spot on. We would like to do that. We have a goal to do a lot more with the schools this year. So Jennifer is going to be helping me outreach to track down who those teachers are and work with them. And then we're also, I've talked about this for a couple of years now, but we're actually going to do it, put a button on the website where people can sign up for tours. So we can make that not just word of mouth, but more open and accessible to everyone. The other work we do, we break it into 4 areas. We support your priority initiatives. So that's when we do project management, convene groups of municipal staff and members of the public to work on items. We do a lot of civic education and communications. This year, a lot of that was around the Municipal 50 anniversary. To us, it was really important not to do busy work for the 50th anniversary. That was just going to be one and done. We really did stuff that would build a community base and connections for the future, and then educate people of how the municipality works. The third area is assembly branch planning and tracking. A really big accomplishment for all of the branch was adoption of Hive for our project management. And not all members are using it, but staff are using it, and it is really helping us keep track of your work and make sure that things aren't slipping through the cracks. So hopefully you are noticing the benefits of that and having your work. I think Brandy is sending out reports monthly. And so hopefully you are feeling more like you know where your projects are in the pipeline and that things aren't falling through the cracks. And the branch staff leadership meets once a month to just make sure we're all caught up on your work. And then the fourth area that we work on is some administrative stuff, such as working with the clerk's office to redo this room. We oversee the youth representative program. We work with the clerk's office on new member orientation and orientation for the aides. Jennifer, over the past year, once a month has been sending out information to the aides to just give them links and resources of the hot topics that are coming up so they can be a little bit better prepared. And I think, that's all for the highlights that we have to share.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't hear any.
Oh, actually, I have one.
Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, this is a question more for Ally. So I know we've got our Winter City Nerd Night scheduled soon, which is great. Maybe I can attend one of these someday, but anyway, it's been a while. But I was wondering if you have the rest of those programmed out for the year, or if you are looking for ideas for themes.
Always open to theme suggestions. Always send them our way. We do have our next theme in mind, so there'll be one more this spring. And we're thinking we'll have like a better theme as in terms of like capturing the spirit of the presentations or directing these folks into one. But we want it to be a City Nerd Night alumni night. So bringing back folks that have previously presented, because at this point there's a couple dozen. And then in the fall, we'd like to do one in Eagle River. And so we've got some momentum underway to schedule that and have it focused on District 2.
Yeah, and also I can follow up offline. I talked with somebody yesterday. We have some ideas, so I'll bug you offline. But thanks. And it's not mysterious. We haven't fully baked it yet. Yeah.
Okay, so we had an item that we rolled past because you weren't here, Ms. Baldwin. No, Ms. Baldwin joined us at 1:45. I'd also note that Mr. Johnson joined us at 1:15, as did the municipal attorney, Eva Gardner. So the item that we kind of skipped up was the discussion about Assembly Member IMS emails and responses and process. And so we'll go ahead and let you have the floor. Welcome.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I will lead off, and then I will pass to Claire. So this came up in part because of the property assessment conversation and sort of the volume of emails that were coming through with respect to constituent questions, folks who live in different parts of town. It wasn't immediately obvious as we were getting inquiries, where folks were located. And that, got me thinking about how, when folks email assembly@anchorageak.gov and we all get an email, it's difficult to sort out unless they include their address or include their district, who might bear the responsibility for responding to that person. And it made me think through, what is a workflow that might actually serve us and our constituents more effectively in being able to, verify, this is my constituents, my responsibility to be that, first line responder. And then, also ensuring that folks who email the collective aren't getting multiple responses from different folks who may or may not actually be their member by geography. So I brought it up to Claire as something to discuss, do we want to make adjustments to that system? My first thought was to personally purchase a read-only list of voter registration in Anchorage so that I could cross-reference names from emails to find out, does this person in fact live in District 4 or not? But that, seemed like maybe an individual solution, but not a collective one. So I wanted to open it a conversation here to talk through if there are changes we might want to make as a body to the way that we handle emails that come through that general mailbox.
Do you want to go there?
Yeah, maybe follow up a little bit on that. Yeah, some people email that address because they want you all to know the same thing, how they feel on an issue. And, but other people seem to be asking specific things. And sometimes it's even something they should probably be asking an someone in the administration. And so our office monitors that email just to see if there's anything to flag, but we don't really feel comfortable jumping in and answering on your behalf. And so it just seems like if there was district information in the email somehow, then we could forward it to the representatives from that district and say, here are some resources you could share, or just help you with those emails more. And then right now we stay away from them because we don't know if other members are answering them. And because of Open Meetings Act, you can't reply all. So just no one knows if those are getting answered. And I have seen a number of the emails come through where people are then yelling at you, why hasn't anyone answered me? And so it's kind of a perennial discussion. Email is always tough for members, I know, but just thought we'd bring it up again. So I did tell Aaron I would do some research before this meeting, and in talking with the clerk's office and Allie, we did find a couple possible solutions. One is, it's not possible now with our website, but I think it would be with the new website. When you code a link behind the scenes that someone clicks on, you can enter in some text into the subject line and body that would automatically be there for them. So we could write a note if, please mention your address or district number or some kind of message so that then they could know to put that in that email. So that's one option that could be possible with the new website. We could, I think this one you'll probably agree with and we can do right away. We could just add more text on the website where that email is when they are clicking to email the whole assembly, and just let them know it'll go to all the members. And if they have an individual district issue, they should contact their individual members. Another option, and I haven't talked to Jamie about this one yet, and it may or may not work, but setting up an auto response for the assembly at anchorageak.gov. There is one for the mass email.
I think it's the opposite. I think the assembly gives an auto response to tell people who their district representatives are.
We could check that and have that same auto response on both. And then another option, which probably wouldn't be popular, is to create a form that they would have to use to send emails to the whole assembly. So they could still email you individually, or they could email all of you at the same time if they wrote in all of your email addresses. But if they wanted to email you all at once, we would put them into a form. So those are kind of some of the technical solutions I found before you begin your discussion of what you might like to do.
Jamie?
I will say that we've started Jasmine was talking to our representative in IT regarding form stack. And there is the ability for them to say what district they're in that, and then have a subject of what their conversation is. Our question is, are you going to be able to decipher based on the subject of the email? Are they going to be able to change their subject, or is it all going to be the same as the way it is when they're commenting on an assembly item? Here's an email from FormStack that isn't going to help. So we're working that out we're checking into that.
Anna?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'll just share. One thing just to note too, as far as district, I think that makes sense because obviously everybody can only live in one district. But I've also found that, especially representing Spenard, half of us represent Spenard, right? So the question is really, who are they actually emailing? And you can tell from their email address, but it might be about something happening. Say they live on the other side of Minnesota and they're talking about the Chelsea Inn, or so, right? So there's like situations like that. Or there's a number of folks who own property, especially rental properties, and they live on the hillside, for example, and they own a bunch of property in Spenard. And so I think just a note of caution, right? That I think that would be great. And just in general, I think sorting out what the community expectations are on answering email, I guess that's what I'll say now. And I'm happy to say a lot more about that because I don't think that there's a reasonable expectation right now from at least some people.
So I would speak briefly as well. First, I respond to any email I want to. I don't care if they're in my district or not, or I don't, and that is my choice, and I'm sovereign in that way. I don't care. Like, I care that they communicate, and I care if I can help, but I don't feel the pressure like some members have, like every email must be responded to, and like, not my way. So that's it. I do reply, even if they're not in my district. And for me in particular, if I know how to resolve the issue of the person in the email, if it is resolvable, then I reply quickly and get it just like without even thinking. It's just done. And then I personally do look up nearly everybody who sends in a communication that I don't know. And I use just public tools that are available. And because I always like to understand who it is that's writing. This is not so consequential a question for me, obviously, because I'm walking out the door shortly. I think that notices up front are good. Even a little bit of a primer on how to email members so they can actually do something, right? I spent some time today writing a little missive on how emails are the best way to get a hold of us, but they have to be very clear communications, like simply state what you're asking for. If it has a location, share the location, these abstract emails where you have to go 4 times back. Anyhow, so some kind of primer on how to effectively get your point across is probably helpful. And yeah, so all of these solutions I don't really have a strong opinion on, but for my part, again, I reply to any of them that I feel like it. So, Aaron, you looked like you wanted to speak before I spoke. No, I'm done.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment about district crossover, and that people might feel an affinity or have an affinity in multiple districts. And so if we were going to move to a model where you are selecting where your communication was routed, I think having the opportunity to choose more than one district might be helpful. That said, yeah, I think having responded to inquiries and questions and asks for help from all over the municipality, it would be nice to just have a triage tool to understand, who are the people that I am like ultimately accountable to, and who are and by ultimately accountable, I mean the folks who elected me to office. And I think that's sometimes difficult to parse out, and it would be nice to be able to triage on that level. But I also appreciate that I'm probably one of those who does feel that not necessarily every email should be responded to, but that responses in general are good practice. I would not put myself in the same category as former Assemblyperson Elvie Gray Jackson, who responded to every single email who came across her screen. I am not that person, but yeah, I think there's for those of us who do spend a lot of time on that part of the job, I think having some extra tools would be nice.
One recent innovation, and I'm not sure how much they use it, is we have offered the administration, one of the deputy chiefs up there, receipt of all the emails we get to the general forum, which is helpful. They're public records. And then they also can understand how intense the communications can get on certain issues at certain times. It's been a while since we had one that was like a casino sounding, where emails are coming in 5 a minute or whatever for 24 hours or 5 days in a row. But it's helpful for the administration to have insight into the general forum communications so that they are having their own read on the issues and how the responses are coming. So I think that was a positive innovation. And I would want to make sure that insofar as the relationship remains good, that we continue doing that, because us having to receive and then communicate, it's like one step more when they might actually have something that they could just do. And I don't know who they have up there right now. It was one of the comms people before.
Christopher.
Amy?
I will look in it right now, but I'm pretty sure it's going to a distribution group of them in the mayor's office right now.
Yeah, I just don't know who's actually, if even anyone is right now paying attention to it, but we set that up and I think it's a valuable tool. Again, sometimes the things that they do impact us in ways that they have no idea. And it's good for them to see cause and effect in action, and that's one of the best ways. That flow of communications is a good benchmark of where people are. Any others on the topic? Aaron, you want to close it?
I'm just wondering if any others have, thoughts on what kinds of solutions they would like to see. And if this is an issue or a problem that is uniquely mine, then I will go about resolving it on my own. But if others would like to weigh in on what sort of workflow or communication they would like to have in place, I think that would be helpful.
So I would offer, since we don't have a clamoring of people, that it might be a good idea for a small working group between a couple members of interest and legislative services and the clerk, just kind of work it out, because I don't think there's broad consensus here. And of course, inertia is always the status quo. So it just keeps working until somebody pushes on it to make it do better. And so those who feel like pushing need to push. And it's clearly not the committee work, but there are probably a couple members. Yeah. Go ahead.
I can commit to looking at the places where we have that email and maybe doing some of the primer things that you're talking about, and have a little bit more explanatory text about what happens when people email that address.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, and you need a yell button. You need a yell button, so they push it so it's all caps and so yeah, because sometimes they just want to scream at all of us all at once.
And then I think my ask would be that if other members have opinions on this topic that they do not necessarily want to share in this venue, that it would be really helpful to send a note to Claire maybe and just say, outlining what's working well for you, what's not working well for you. And, how can we shift so that the sort of barrage of email is a little more digestible for all of us, hopefully. I think that would be a helpful starting point, and I will be one of the people who feels like pushing. Thank you.
A working group.
If I could just ask that it also be emailed to me.
Yep.
Where our office is responsible for the,
Forms.
no, our office is the manager of the IT stuff for you guys, so.
Yep.
Any changes have to come through my office.
Yeah, we definitely need the clerk, LSO, and a group of members or a member. Ideally, more than one. Creative ideas ferment when there's more people. Okay, so next we have, one second. So our next agenda item relates to the attorneys talking, but Vice Chair, Ms. Brawley had a question for me this morning that I thought was a better question to have here and not me answer. So Hannah.
Yeah, and I think that, so this is thinking about, so we meet every 2 weeks or so, more or less. And then we're always basically on what I call a treadmill of our calendar, right? Because you're always trying to meet the deadlines of that. And I recognize that all of that crashes into our council for the most part. Although I know legislative services you guys have taken on helping with like resolutions or things like that, which is super helpful. So it's, anyway, so there's a team who works on this. And I know that the more active all 12 of us are, the more that becomes a bottleneck, right? And is a challenge. And so I want to acknowledge that. But also I think I think it'd be helpful to understand kind of how we prioritize various requests coming in. And again, not to put you guys on the spot right now, but I think it's just hard, and it's something that I want to hopefully try to solve, because I don't want folks to feel like their items are not getting moved forward. But also I know, again, we all are very demanding members if we're active, especially if there's things on the agenda that we have to meet certain timelines. So Anyway, just wanted to open that discussion. And I know it's not something we can solve right now, but I know it can be crunch time a lot of times. So thanks.
And I'll add to that, two things. One, I've been for years recruiting for a third attorney, and offered 3 times and had 3 say, no, thank you, once the offer was made. Maybe a future chair will have better luck with that. And what I had said to Anna was, if our attorneys on the second floor get overwhelmed, kind of clock completely full between this and the next meeting, that the most successful assembly members are the ones who figure out how to work with the 7th floor attorneys on drafting legislation. And so the municipal attorney is here. I think she would confirm that those attorneys also represent you and can help work, and they have a different workflow. Generally speaking, I don't know if it's still Quincy that is the kind of broker, but Quincy upstairs on the 7th floor is the one you would reach out to and say, I have this project, here's the subject. And they would work between themselves upstairs to identify the subject matter expert. And then you would have another attorney to help you. And now many of them are not up to speed on assembly procedures. So you want to keep our friends on the 2nd floor involved to make sure that things meet the form and meet the process and timelines. But they are attorneys and they can do the work that we need. And so I just want to offer to those who are listening, the most successful members, and if you're measuring by passed and approved legislation, are the ones who work with both sets of attorneys. So figure that out and you will be more successful than if you just rely on our very hard, overworked, excellent attorneys on the 2nd floor. So Jamie?
Well, I'll probably let Eva speak to this if she's back there, but they do have a request for legal services form that can be filled out. And so I can email that around, or you guys can fill it out, and I think anybody can submit it or you can probably submit it yourself, but we can get that for you.
That was like my thoughts on the question that was brought to me this morning by Anna, but I think that our attorneys could also add anything that they want.
As far as prioritization goes, there's not a rigor or a rigid criteria for how things get racked and stacked. We do try, and there are members who we are cognizant that they are term limited out. And we are trying to, at this point, prioritize anything they've got just to make sure that none of their legislative priorities sort of get left on the table. Otherwise, it has a lot to do with the complexity of the project, the amount of, I mean, we're kind of juggling long-term projects and short-term projects at the same time. And it's a real balancing act of trying to get the smaller stuff out the door while keeping progress moving on the longer term, heavier drafts. But yeah, I would say it's probably more art than science. I apologize that that's probably not a great answer.
In your defense, oh, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, I would just add, well, I concur with Mr. Hood and what he said. I would just add that, I guess, in my entire time in the Assembly Council's office since 2017, this same issue kind of arises because, you know, all the Assembly members want their things done timely. It's hard to meet that, and the variety of projects and the juggling we need to do. I think we also need to consider how important it is as attorneys to fulfill our duty to be diligent, be informed, and produce a good product for you, be accurate. And so sometimes it's verifying all these things that takes time, even when, you know, when sure you think it's a small project. So,
Yeah, thanks for that. And I wasn't expecting that there is some complex rubric or something like that. And I think I also bring it up just to mention to members, myself included, right? We've all, I think, contributed to we need something really quickly and then maybe not giving enough time for that turnaround, right? So so I think it's just something to be aware of, that we do have Department of Law. It is hard to bring somebody in halfway through too. So pivoting quickly can be challenging. And of course, our legislative drafters are supposed to be the ones with the most knowledge about how to, our practices and how we write things. So partly it's just a reminder to members to like try to give people more time, or at least be aware that that's a factor. And then especially when there's big meetings or during budget time, or we know there's some times that things get really crunched. And so that's what I would offer.
Yeah, I will say for bigger projects, the more hands are involved. So some of the bigger legislative projects we've had legislative services involved from like inception. And I've found that that's having them involved helps keep the ball being advanced. Because if there is a tendency for us to fall behind in work, having an outside staff member to kind of impose deadlines on us isn't necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, I do encourage, for the example that's coming to mind right now is like the landlord AO that we did for members Johnson and Baldwin Day. That was a really big lift, and that's and it still took a very long time, but Jennifer did a great job of having periodic meetings, concluding each meeting with setting another meeting, tasks that as a lawyer I'm just terrible at. So I feel like there was a lot of value added in having legislative services involved early on that.
I think new members get a sense of the processes. It's a bit of a Hunger Games thing. May the odds be ever in your favor. And there maybe is some truth to this idea, because if your ideas aren't well formed, if it's not really clear, and some people just hand a single line, this is what I want to do, to the attorneys, and don't kind of define what they want to do, and the attorneys can't read your mind. What does that mean? One line isn't enough, unless it's like this code, this page, this word, if it's conceptual. And so it's like this back and forth process. And my longest term project, I think, is on the agenda for Tuesday, and it's 2.5 years of effort. Fits and starts. Things took time, things were working, and then we did all the work, and then we had to bring the administration in because they're the ones that have to implement it, and that took another year or 8 months. And so there's a lot of strategy in getting your priorities on the table. Burning fires may be burning fires to the body and the attorneys, or they may not be. There's an old adage, one of my favorite college mentors used to have a little sign on her desk, and that's lack of planning on your part does not create an emergency on my part. And so unless it's an emergency, then that's something that people can define how they're going to move through the workflow. So having patience and time. But I think the biggest secret to folks being successful, I'm just going to reiterate where I started, is use your team up on the 7th floor, because while they are all busy and they have their hands full, I don't think any of them has 14 or 15 clients that are driving on them like every day. Maybe there's 2 up there actually, or 1 that does, and she has even more clients. But for the most part, the bandwidth is wider. And so, but I think those really only work for projects that are like that middle scale, a little bit more medium. Because if they're short-term, quick turnarounds, maybe they can do it, but maybe it's just a formatting issue on our team. And so, anything else on that topic? Nope. Okay, we're going to move into the actual agenda item there. Subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person and executive sessions. Mr. Hurd.
All right, who doesn't like to conclude with a little law in the afternoon? All right, so this came up recently at a meeting, and I was asked to prepare a brief spiel to discuss basically subjects that tend to prejudice the reputation and character of any person. As y'all know, that's one of the bases for us to adjourn to executive session. And given the work that we do as the body that has to confirm people into certain positions, this provision of code can be implicated a lot. So first of all, if you do have misgivings about a person who's been appointed or you have reason to question their fitness for a position, you're absolutely within your right to question that. Like, I don't want this to be viewed as inhibiting that at all. Like, I think that some of the more senior members of this body know quite well the danger of not rigorously examining people who are appointed to positions that are subject to confirmation. So this isn't meant to discourage you in doing your due diligence as members of this body at all. What it is meant to do is to caution you to the procedural safeguards that are in place to protect that person's reputation. So within that requirement that a subject, that when we're going to discuss matters that might tend to prejudice someone's reputation or character, there's an implied requirement that they be given notice. What it takes to fulfill that notice requirement isn't exactingly fleshed out in case law. There are cases where the court found that the listing of a person's employment or something like that before a city council was found on the publicly noticed agenda was sufficient notice to that person. However, given the nature of some of the positions we find ourselves confirming, I'm not sure that just somebody, if Matthew Hurt is appointed to be on the library board, just that in and of itself, I don't know that a court would find that sufficient notice, that, you know, that I'm trying to think of an example. Say if somebody wanted to bring up the fact that maybe somebody streaked the outdoor showing of The Sixth Sense in front of Belk Dorm junior year of college, right? Like that, I'm not necessarily sure that, just to pull out a random example, complete hypothetical. I'm not sure that just the fact that I have been put on a memorandum to be appointed to the library board, and I know that it's going to be on a given Tuesday night, is going to be found to be sufficient notice that that particular allegation was going to be brought up. So, so there are concerns about providing sufficient notice to the people who are applying for positions on boards or being appointed to positions subject to confirmation, that particular matters may be discussed regarding their fitness for their position. We'll get back to that in a little bit. So what are the repercussions if we do discuss somebody and damage their reputation on the record? Well, the good news for you is that generally you all have legislative immunity for things you say on the dais. And before we go drunk with power, like the villain in Lethal Weapon 2, right? Your immunity is essentially from you being sued in a personal capacity for your official statements made in debate. So you individually probably can't be successfully sued. The city, however,
Wait,
the
hold
municipal,
on there.
sorry.
Before you move on to the city and the broader liability, you said a very key phrase in there that I want people to understand very plainly, and that's from the dais.
From the dais,
Can you
yes.
kind of clarify what you mean there before you move on to? broader?
Absolutely. So when we are convened in a meeting of the body and you are sitting on the dais as assembly member who so-and-so, you are acting clearly in an official capacity, and the things you say in debate are generally determined to be, you're generally determined to have legislative immunity because it's essentially speech and debate protection, right? Your job is to vigorously debate things of public concern, and to ensure you have the freedom to do that. When you're functioning in that capacity, you, on an individual capacity, are generally going to be immune from suit. Once you step away from the dais.
Yeah, so I want to put a frame on that. That's generally speaking, when there's a gavel on the table, when there is a meeting convened, when there is a call to order and we are in session
Right. Now,
right now.
yeah, like right now it would be, yes. When you step away though, yeah, your legislative immunity is not as clear cut. There are maybe examples where it could apply to things that you say outside of a meeting, but I would work under the assumption that it does not apply to, even if you're acting in your official capacity.
So let me provide some examples.
Just to be cautious. Yep.
For foods of thought, talking to a reporter, sending out a press release, publishing something on a social media account, Talking even at a community council, it's potential. That's probably one of the grayer areas.
Right.
Because it is a creature of the municipality. But anytime you are speaking outside of that convened session and you may slander or libel somebody, you may be doing that at your own risk.
Yeah, and I just want these aren't black and white rules, unfortunately. Like, you ask a lawyer for a straight answer, and you're going to get depends. But you know, there is part and parcel of your duties is engaging with your constituency. So there is an argument, but it's certainly not nearly as clean cut as it is when we're on the dais and we're engaged in debate and formally convened as a body. That said, even when we are functioning as a convened body and debating matters of public concern, if we do take up stuff in public that might harm someone's reputation, we are exposing the municipality as a whole to lawsuits. So you might not be individually sued, but the municipality can still be found liable for damages to someone's reputation. And as I'm sure Ms. Gardner will say, lawsuits are expensive. You know, even once you win, like, nobody wins a lawsuit, right? It's like, oh, the attorneys. In the words of Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, no one wins a fight. And under lawsuits, there's two predominant theories for damage to someone's reputation. So one is obviously defamation. The other one that I was really interested to dig in on is it's also a due process violation, because people essentially have been found to have a property interest in their reputation. And as a government body, if you do damage to someone's reputation, then you're essentially depriving them of a property interest without due process of law. Outside of the municipality being sued and us costing the taxpayer additionally more money, there's also a strong argument that defaming someone or doing damage to their reputation, even in your official capacity, could be grounds for recall. As you all know, under Alaska Statutes 2926, 250, misconduct in office, incompetence, or failure to perform prescribed duties are the bases for which people can be recalled from office. And, you know, even a recall that you handily win, I'm sure, is a deeply unpleasant experience, and for no one more so than the clerk, I would imagine. And they're also pretty expensive. So as stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, we don't want to necessarily incur grounds for recall. So big picture, if you have a particular issue or a question that needs to be raised in doing your due diligence as members to investigate whether or not somebody is a good fit for a job that we're confirming them for, I strongly encourage you to raise that issue. If you do need to raise it, I think probably the best route would be to postpone that item and provide that person, so we can provide that person particularized notice of what's going to be discussed, so they can have an opportunity to request a public hearing, and a meaningful opportunity to request a public hearing on that item. And then when that item comes, if the person wants it to be an executive session, we can adjourn to executive session to discuss those issues. If they want to have it out in public, then everything's covered, and we have protected their due process rights and their reputational interests and conformed with the law. So pending your questions.
Questions? Daniel?
Yeah, I feel like I appreciate this conversation, and I appreciate I don't know, I feel like we're being encouraged to be risk averse when we take up these questions.
You absolutely are being encouraged to be risk averse.
Yeah. However, you know, I'm also thinking about, like, on the federal level, when you see somebody for, you know, who's being, if there's a hearing for like a Supreme Court justice nominee, well, that person gets their mail read out loud, you know, in these hearings with Congress people. Like, there has to be some expectation, I think, that if your name is put forward for a public board or commission, that your history can be looked into and discussed. And so I guess what I'm wondering is about, okay, what about instances of, okay, let's say, for instance, we had an appointee for the chief medical officer, and there is a documented history, court records and newspaper articles that they committed malpractice multiple times. Am I not allowed to bring that up in a public setting? Or should I say from the dais, hey, the reason I am not wanting to confirm this person is because they have a history of being convicted of malpractice? Is that damage to their reputation that should be only discussed in executive session? I don't think so. I think the public also has a right to know about these things. And I also, as we've discussed multiple times, am leery of using executive session to discuss things that should be discussed in front of the public. And so I guess that's where I would come from the other side of this conversation and say, some of this is kind of gray and murky. Probably, if in doubt, better to use the tool of executive session. But I think it is not beyond us to stick to the facts, not things that are really like subjective, I don't like this person because of whatever. But when there's instances, I think, of things that are on a previous public record, I think that should be okay to discuss publicly. That's just my 2 cents. And I'm not an attorney.
So discussing things that are a matter of public record, I see your argument. The reason I would caution and request to go to executive session is you may make a statement, right, that's pretty straightforward and cut and dry. However, I don't know how another member of the dais is going to respond to that, and you don't either, right? And that's what makes me encourage the body to adjourn to executive session to discuss something like that, is so that we don't have to worry about, like, is the next person going to say something that's out of bounds? Are we getting into relitigating the underlying allegations now in public? There's a tendency to, even though the initial statement or the initial issue that gets brought up may be a matter of public record and fair game for public debate, the body probably can't fully debate and hash out that argument without needing to go into executive session. I guess
So-
that's my concern.
I'm gonna lay a little bit more context then. I think that risk averse is like on the left, or, no risk. Careful is in the middle, and then damn the torpedoes is on the right. And so I think that I had gotten a note from someone that suggested that you have to have proportionality in your mind. Like, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a health department director who is going to set policy that is going to do a number of things? Or are we talking about someone who's willing to take the punishment of sitting on the Board of Equalization? And what are the relative scales there when it comes down to it? Or someone sitting on the Parks and Rec Board, or someone sitting on I don't know, but some of these less consequential things. And then are we going to actually expose whatever little thing we could dig up on them, and what is the proper venue for that? And so for me, it's the careful is the standard that we all should engage in our work when we're speaking someone's name across the dais. Like, there's a long tradition of not naming people. In Robert's rules, it says you don't name people. And unless you're named, and when you're named, that's an act of discipline. And anyhow, so there's a lot of thought that goes into how we approach the questions of speaking to someone's reputation on the dais. And I think for me, care and caution are important. And, sometimes putting the records and asking the questions about the records that exist is a factual process that is worthy to do in the public. And that's the subjective nature of this job.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, generally courts have found, like, the greater responsibility a public official is entrusted with, like, the greater the public interest in their personal life is, right? Like, if we are entrusting this person with an entire department and, X amount of taxpayer dollars, then yeah, the public interest in their professional qualifications and things like that and educational history, is greater, as opposed to the example of me being appointed to the library board, right? I will say, to the extent these issues can be identified in advance, the attorneys will be very grateful for you to flag those issues for us so that we can arrive at what our advice is going to be somewhere other than on the dais in the middle of the heat of battle. Because you're right, there may be something where it's a legitimate part of the public record and you can state your objections or questions without really impugning somebody's reputation with any additional information. But like I said, I just ask us or the Department of Law in advance, please.
Let them help you. So Anna, you were in the queue.
Yeah, I think it was some of the same thoughts, but just also to drill down on that, is there a material difference between someone who's being employed? I mean, so the Supreme Court justice, that's a job. Department director is a job. All of these are some form of public service, right? But I also wonder, is there a distinction there because of the, well, one, because of all of our collective bargain, well, the folks we're talking about would not be under collective bargaining agreements, but they are employment agreements, and there's all the complex HR things that I don't know enough about to parse out. But is that seems to suggest that would be a difference where executive session is warranted because dealing with HR issues is its own thing as well, even if the person isn't employed yet. But also I guess I'm trying to sort out, like, is that really the distinction? Because I don't remember, since I've started, I don't remember if there was an executive session about a board or commission appointment. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about a lot of them. And I think there's the discretion of, right, what you could say, and then what is the basis that you were putting on the record for why you were voting the way you're voting. But we didn't go to an executive session.
Right.
I guess that's what I'm wondering. Like, is it suggested that is a standard practice? Because I don't think we've done that. And obviously in a situation where that would potentially be germane versus are we going to pull this person from the agenda and not even talk about it? But
Which happens.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent we can identify the issue in advance, from my perspective, the main thing is making sure this person has noticed that this issue is going to be discussed at all, be it in public or in an executive session, because there is clear case law that shows, like, people not being given that having that notice requirement fulfilled is a clear grounds for recall election. So even if we determine it not to be a sufficient basis to go into executive session, I do think it would make sense to pull an item and delay it to the next meeting just so we can provide that person specific notice of, like, what issue is going to be discussed.
thanks. And I'll just say one more thing, which is, again, there's all of the things you could say or all of the reasons you could take an action. And then there's what you put on the public record as the basis by which you have said you've made that decision. So I see those as not two separate things that are in conflict, but they are distinct things to think about.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I would say it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a misstatement to suggest that the municipal attorney agrees that providing council advance notice that you have some concerns so they can walk through with you the gravity of your concerns relative to the question before you. That's why we have attorneys, to provide us advice in this process. And it meets the standard of the code. Like, the code provides that the individual can waive the need to have these discussions behind closed doors, which, if you take that one step removed, it is the code providing them an opportunity to know in advance what's going to be said about them or be brought behind closed doors so they can have that discussion. And so I think that the code really does paint a picture that says hijacks are not desirable, but instead let's have a informed discussion with all parties. And so I hope that kind of penetrates for folks that, you know, maybe it is a gray area, maybe there are concerns, maybe there are substantial enough concerns for them to not be brought on, but walk through the process with council in advance.
Yeah, and I would just like to say, like, generally when these these items are brought up in front of the body is during the consent agenda time, and that's like prime floor amendment late on the table drafting time for me and Dean. So the chance of us not catching something that shouldn't be said in public session is much higher at that point. And nobody wants to play issue spotting while we're doing like a distracted driving test or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that covers the gist. Obviously, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us here. And so maybe a summary that goes out to all members that just kind of encapsulates. I know that our legislative services team might have some tools to actually create a transcript, not just the video. I know that I had that aide who was able to take audio and just turn it into transcripts. Did we figure out how to do that for this so that they don't have to type up all of this, figure out a way to transcribe into some key?
Oh, this report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just that 10-minute piece right there so that we can take choice cuts out of it. So they don't have to spend a bunch of time. Hey, this is what our recommendations are. Instead, we say here, even though we have the video, a lot of people just aren't going to read it, and having the words probably is helpful. Just a thought. And I know that doesn't take super long. Yeah. So, we used to have somebody post the complete transcript of our assembly meetings. Yeah, and that's fine. But then we hand it off to them to make sure it says what they meant. So it would be super helpful to do that. And okay, so I think then that concludes the items of business except for our assembly member discussion of pending business or updates. We'll start with you, whatever you'd like to bring forward, Ms. Baldwin-Day.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Boland.
I'm also good. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Brawley.
Just a couple updates. One is a few of us are going to Juneau next week for the Alaska Municipal League Conference, and also meeting with legislators. I know the mayor's gone, so just if you have thoughts to convey or questions or folks that we should stop in and say hello to, please let legislative services know, and then they can pass that on, even though it's not really an OMA thing that we're voting on. And then other thing to note, I am working on an ordinance that hopefully will get introduced soon, which is regulating data centers in Title 21, our zoning code. They are not really contemplated there. It's a big issue that's been discussed in a number of other communities. And I think the closest thing that's there right now is a by right use. And so there wouldn't be kind of a review process for those. So anyway, look for that soon, and hoping to bring that one forward for discussion in March. Thanks.
I am not bringing forward any discussions on my pending items other than we have the big open records item coming up, but we have a work session on that tomorrow. So, Mr. McCormick, anything you'd like to brief us on pending or upcoming business?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
All right, and Yarrow, Ms. Silvers? Okay, I think we might have lost her. So
Nothing at this time.
Oh, okay, there you are, Yarrow. Thanks. And then we'll come to audience participation. Any member of the public wish to be heard? Can we start the clock? Do you have it, Jamie? I have a clock as well.
All right. No way to see the clock on my end.
Nope. Please state your name, what part of the town you're from. You'll have 3 minutes.
Jamie Lopez, East Anchorage, formerly Coalition, formerly Homeless. So saw the agenda. As Kathleen McClellan would say, it looks rather spicy. So I figured I'd come take a look and watch it, and I had some time in between before I'm going to volunteer at a pantry to take food to people. And so more or less, yeah, lots of different things, but I wanted to watch this thing. On my way here, somebody approached me, asked if I had $20 to buy a North Face because clearly they're struggling. They need help, and they're over at Linda's place and had people calling me for food. Had somebody got kicked out of emergency cold weather shelter, family emergency cold weather shelter, because clearly they're prioritizing people. You don't have enough for that. But it was sort of semi-interesting to watch this play out with, questions about emails, questions about, other things as well. And public officials, come on, guys. You do sort of represent the public. Just try to do the best you can. And obviously, some people hold you to a strict account. Others realize you're human beings. Everybody has flaws. And then the question is, are you recognizing the people that you're helping? And even so, there's social commentary in between. Anyways, I think I'll just end it there. I'll see you on Tuesday and then maybe Wednesday. And obviously enjoy your weekend. And yeah, see you around.
Thank you. All right, next closing comments, Member Baldwin Dames. Aaron,
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Mr. Bowman,
Nothing.
Ms. Brawley,
All good.
Mr. McCormick, Ms. Silvers, any last words?
Nothing for me, thanks.
I agree. We'll stand in adjournment tomorrow. We have a couple of morning work sessions. Usually we start midday and later, but because it's a holiday weekend, we do our very best to have all business concluded by 2:00 at this branch. And so we will have our morning work sessions. See you tomorrow. We're adjourned.